Hey everyone, Josh here with Gaming Underground Miniatures, back again doing a Destruction Battletome Sons of Behemat review. So, this one is probably going to be actually a pretty short review, only because I'm going to talk about the lore in a separate video. This, I want to just do the rules, because that's what we focus on. We like the rules, we like doing the gameplay, so might as well focus on what the rules are. But I will say, beautiful battletome, beautiful art, and I have been so excited for this army since I've heard about it. I purchased the 3 kits to get the 3 variants. I have 2 done so far. I got 1 more to build. I have 1 of the Man Crushers so far, 2 more to be built, and that'll be the 2,000 point list. That's 2,000 points on the dot, and then as time goes on, I'm going to get more of each variant. That way I can do full tribes of the same one, especially since we found out that they're not unique. You know, everyone didn't know, like, could you only run 1? Are you going to be able to do multiples? And as we found out, you can do multiples. And there's different things that, as more and more time goes on, we're picking up from the different battletome. So I'm going to do a dive into that, see what people think, give my opinion of what I think, and go from there. Also, just so you know, I am filming today at the Vault Gaming Lounge in Felton, Delaware. So if you hear a little background noise, it's just from other players playing. I'm in my own little space. That's why I don't have my mask on or anything right now. Got pretty much an isolated zone. I'm going to show it off. It's a little neat. So I've got this full zone, little doorway, and then just pure walls all around me. Someone already made the joke, like, knock, 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 all I need is a door, and I got my own little office, so. But, let's take a look into the battletome. So, these guys are expensive points-wise. So you're going to see War Stomper. He's 480. The Kraken is 490, and the Gatebreaker is 490 as well. So depending on the list you want to run, you could run 2 to 3 of them to get a full tribe. You could run 1 of each variant as well. Like I said, that's my plan right now. Get the 2,000 points and then work from there. Something neat that they did for these guys, the Man Crushers, if you take a unit of 3, which is the max in a unit, they count as 3 battle line. So even in a 2,000 point game, and you know, I'm sure they did this on purpose just because of how perfectly it lines up. For 2,000 points exactly, you get 1 of each Gargant of the Mega Gargants, and then 3 of these Gargants. So you take the 3, you have 3 in a battle line. You can split them up because they count as your battle line anyway, and you get the same amount of points there. So, we're going to start off with the allegiance abilities. So, if you're a Sons of Behemat army, you're going to get these abilities. Mightier makes rightier. When determining control of an objective, friendly Man Crusher Gargant model counts as 10 models instead of 1, and each friendly Mega Gargant counts as 20 models instead of 1. Now, something important to note here that I actually picked up from someone else. The extra model count only works when you use the army itself, because each of these guys can be a mercenary, so you can run them in destruction, chaos, order, and death armies. If you run the mercenary, they don't actually get that rule, so they only count as a single model. I already play tested that, and I got that wrong. I was counting it as 20, my opponent was counting it as 20, we both were just thinking that, and it didn't even occur to us that that is a allegiance ability. So that's something important to note when you're allying in. If you're doing the ally mercenary rules, it's 1 model. If you're doing the actual allegiance rules, they are 20 model count. So then you have the Chuck Rocks. In your shooting phase, you can pick 1 friendly Man Crusher Gargant unit wholly within 18 inches of your general. Each model in that unit can make a shooting attack with the Chuck Rocks missile weapon. What that does is 18-inch range. D3 attacks, so on minimum you're going to get 3 attacks. At max you'll get 9 attacks that hit on 4s, wound on 3s, -1 ren, and it's D3 damage. So there's a little bit of controversy right now for this. I haven't seen GW put out anything to kind of help people figure out one way or the other. Because of how this is put, in your shooting phase you can pick one friendly Man-Crusher Gargant unit wholly within 18 inches of your general. Each model in that unit can make a shooting attack with the Chuck Rocks missile weapon. I repeat that again just because the way it's worded, your general could just give that ability out to someone. However, the army runs, we'll go over it later, a lot on running, because the Man-Crushers run and keep up with the Gargants because they can still charge. Typically, you cannot run and shoot, unless a rule states otherwise. So there's a little bit of a debate right now whether you can run and do this because it's telling you you get to make a shooting attack, or if you run, do you no longer qualify for this because you've now ran and it's saying that you can make a shooting attack. So there's different camps on that right now. I'm not actually sure which way I lean myself on that. If I had to, just to play it safe, I'd probably go towards the side of they don't get it. Like if I was in a tournament, if I was playing right now in a tournament and GW hasn't said one way or the other, I'd say, okay, I ran, I don't get to make a shooting attack. That's just the way I would play it for now. Hopefully they kind of give some clarification on that, and we'll figure out where we go. The last one is Lord and Master. This is how you get the different tribes. Tribes are going to be your chambers, are going to be, your war hosts, different, all that kind of thing. The general of the Sons of Behemat army must be one of the following types of Mega Gargant. Depending on the type of Mega Gargant you choose, you can use extra abilities listed on the page indicated. Kraken Eater makes you the Taker tribe. War Stomper makes you the Stomper tribe. And Gatebreaker makes you the Breaker tribe. And then they have entire pages of rules specifically to each one. So I'm going to go to the models first and go over them. That way when I go back to their traits and their artifacts and stuff they can choose once you pick a tribe, it kind of makes more sense. Something to note here that's kind of disappointing, there's no battalions. So because of how high point the models are, I'm guessing they didn't think of how to kind of ease into some battalions. I would have liked to see a couple battalions where it really leans into like take 2 War Stompers and 3 Man-Crushers or 4 Man-Crushers and use this War Scroll for 100 points. Something like that. Or take 2 Kraken Eaters, or take a Kraken Eater and a Gatebreaker and, 3 Man-Crushers and get this. I think that would have been nice. Hopefully we get something maybe in White Dwarfs down the line, but we'll have to wait and see about that. But going on to the Gargants themselves. So we have the Kraken Eater Mega Gargant. All the Gargants have 35 wounds. All of them have a 4-up save. All of them have a 7 bravery. Obviously they're a single model. Bravery didn't really matter, so 35 wounds makes them very hardy to take down, but they don't really have anything that protects against mortal wounds. A 4-up save, decent save. Some people have been complaining about it, but I think a 3-up save may have been more appropriate due to their size and to just represent that kind of like gargantuan kind of Titanic feeling, but I'm not going to complain about a 4-up save. It's not the best. It's not the worst. It gives them enough to get by. Ren 2 is going to hurt. Ren 3 is going to be deadly. But mortal wounds is really what's going to bring these guys down and bring them down quick. Something that they're going to share between all the war scrolls. Sons of Behemat. If a spell or ability would slay this model without any wounds or mortal wounds being inflicted by the spell or ability, this model suffers d6 mortal wounds instead. So what does that mean? You can't Hand of Dust them. You can't, what is it? Archaon has his Slayer of Kings. You can't use that. Anything that would just go on this chance, this model, slay one model instantly. These guys say, no, that doesn't happen. I'm going to eat d6 mortal wounds instead. So, it's nice that they can't be killed instantly. That is one of the few things that they kind of protected them against. Going to the Kraken Eater specifically, he has Hurled Debris. It's 3 attacks, hits on 4s, wounds on 3s, -1 rend, d3 damage. He gets the Chuck Rock's ability, basically. His range is dependent on the wounds he suffered at the time. It starts out at 24, goes 21, 18, 15, and ends at 12. He has the Almighty Stomp, which is range 2. 2 attacks, 3 to hit, 3 to wound, -2 rend, d3 damage. He has Death Grip, which is a 3-inch range. It's 1 attack, 3 and 2, -3 rend, d6 damage. And then he finally has the Shipwrecker War Club. It is 3 inches reach. It has attacks based on the wounds. It goes 8, 7, 7, 6, 5. It is 3s to hit, 3s to wound, -2 rend, 2 damage each. Now that is one of the big sticklers to these guys, is a lot of their main attack doesn't do the damage thought. I think 3 would have been an appropriate area. I've seen some people that wanted like 4 or 5. I can understand not doing 4 or 5. That could get crazy. But I think with their size and everything, 3 damage is where I would have liked to see them at. Just flat 3. 2, it's kind of been shown like there's 100-point heroes, 150-point heroes that have 2 damage weapons. So it doesn't kind of make sense that you have a weapon that is the size of an ogre, being swung around and does 2 damage, when something that is like a toothpick to them does 2 damage. The big thing about the Kraken Eater, get Orphan Me Land. In the hero phase, if you have any models with this ability within 1 inch of an objective that you control, you can pick one of those models and say that it will kick the objective away. If you do so, you can move that objective up to 2d6 inches to a new position on the battlefield, more than 1 inch away from any model's terrain, features, or other objectives. An objective cannot be kicked away more than once in the same phase. That is the only time I think I've seen anything in AOS that can move objectives, which is nice. And it's something that would make taking 2 to 3 of these on the list really dangerous for the enemy, because now I can manipulate the objectives on the field where they are, and based on the points, I might want to kick them forward, I might want to kick them back, I may want to take a defensive kind of stance with them, but it is going to change games. Like, you take a couple Kraken Eaters, I think that'll be game changing, being able to just manipulate the objectives away. And what makes the Kraken Eaters better is one of their traits that you're going to see for their take or try. They also have Almighty Stomp. You can reroll hit rolls of 1 for the Almighty Stomp attack unless the target is a monster. So if you're not going after a monster, you're going to get to reroll the 1s on the Stomp. And it was a 3-up to hit, so chances are you're going to be hitting with that. Crushing Charge is something they all share. After this model makes a charge move, roll for a dice for each enemy unit within 1 inch of this model. On a 2+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds if it was a monster, or d6 mortal wounds if it is not a monster. So d6 mortal wounds on a 2-up against basically anything that's infantry, hero, anything that's not a monster. So, and then you still get a d3 even against monsters. So the Terrorgeist you run into, the Maul Crusher, anything like that, you're gonna get some mortal wounds on. You have Death Grip. You can reroll. It rolls a 1 for Death Grip that attack a target monster. So Death Grip is the thing that you want to go after the monster with. Like I said, it's a d6 damage, -3 ren, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s. So rerolling 1 against a monster, you're almost guaranteed to hit. And you're gonna be almost guaranteed that wound. The other ability, Longshanks. When this model makes a normal move, it can ignore models that have a wound characteristic of 10 or less and terrain features that are less than 4 inches tall at their highest point. It cannot finish the move on top of another model or within 3 inches of an enemy model. So these guys kind of get to just step over small terrain. They get to step over, infantry. They're supposed to be so gargantuan that they don't care about that. And that can be deceptive for the enemy when moving around. They don't have a huge move. The Kraken Eater has an 11-inch move, and you have to stay outside of 3. So you still have to be close, but you can play around with that. And it can just be something that kind of messes with them, like, alright, I'm going to go around this terrain and be closer to you, or I'm going to step over this terrain and get away from you and create a barrier with the terrain. You have plenty of different options you can do there. The other big ability, Stuff them in me net. After this model piles in, you can pick up to D3 enemy models within 3 inches of this model and roll a dice for each of them. If the roll is at least double that model's wound characteristic, it is slain. What makes this big is you pick the models. So you run into an enemy group, you can pick the bannerman out, you can pick the musician out, you can pick out the leader of that group. Like, you could pick out different models to break up coherency. You can pick different things that are really going to mess with your opponent's idea of play. Some units rely on that +1 bravery from banners, or so City of Sigmar they have where they can get extra command points off their banners, and some groups really need the musician to reroll charges and stuff. So you take the critical models out of that unit, and now you're crippling some of what they can do. They have Terror. Subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic of enemy units if they are within 3 inches of any friendly units with this ability. So, typical minus bravery. These guys are supposed to be huge, size of mountains, so they intimidate the people. Pretty simple. And then, Timber! If this model is slain before removing the model from the battlefield, the players must roll off. The winner must pick a point on the battlefield 5 inches from this model. Each unit within 3 inches of that point suffers D3 mortal wounds unless it is a Mega Gargant, so they won't hurt themselves. This model is then removed from the battlefield. So pretty much they have a blow-up rule, which is pretty cool. Then you have the War Stomper. It has the Almighty Jump. Pretty much the same as Almighty Stomp. They just named it differently. They have the Crushing Charge. They have the Death Grip. They have Longshanks. They have the Sun. They have Timber. What makes them different is Hurled Body. Once per combat phase, you can pick one enemy model within 3 inches of this model and roll a dice. Add the Hurled Body modifier shown on the damage table of the roll. Hurled Body has a changing one of +2, +1, 0, -1, -2. If the roll is at least double the enemy model's wound characteristic, it is slain, and you can roll another dice. On a 4+, you pick an enemy unit within 12 inches of this model and visible to it. That unit suffers a number of mortal wounds equal to the wound characteristic of the slain model. So you go over, you pick one out, you pitch them out, you kill one, and you can get 1 to 2 mortal wounds. Maybe you go for someone with a higher count, like a 2 or 3 model count, so you might even deal 3 mortal wounds. They have Terror, and then the Titanic Boulder Club. This one is wordy. You have the attack characteristic of a Titanic Boulder Club is equal to the number of enemy models within 3 inches of the attacking model. Add the Titanic Boulder Club value on the attacking model's damage table to the total, and add 4 to the total for each enemy monster within 3 inches of the attacking model. The modified attack characteristic for the Titanic Boulder Club is less than 1. It counts as being 1. If the modified attack characteristic of the Titanic Boulder Club is more than 10, it counts as 10. So you'll always get 1 attack with it, and they capped it at 10. The bonus that you get is +4, +3, +2, +1, and 0. So, Titanic Boulder Club, it's a 3-inch weapon. It's a 3 up to hit, 3 up to wound, -2 rend, 2 damage. So, here's the thing about this one. I think damage might have been spot on for it if they hadn't capped it. With the cap, I think I would have liked to see 3 damage again, once again, to represent their size and all. However, if they hadn't added a cap, and this guy could just go wild against hordes and whatnot, then I'd be perfectly fine with it having that 2 damage, because at that point, if you're getting 20 attacks, 2 damage is more than adequate for what's going to end up going through. The last one for the Mega Gargants is the Gatebreaker. He has a Hurled Boulder attack. It's 1 attack at a 3 up to hit, 2 up to wound, -3 rend, 4 damage. So, decent little rock that he's throwing. Has a changing range from 18 inches to 15, 12, 9, and 6. He has the Almighty Stomp like the others, Death Grip like the others. He has the Fort Crusher Flail. 3-inch weapon range, has a decreasing attack, starts at 10, goes to 9, 7, 6, 3. Now he has a higher to hit of 4 up, a wound of 3 up, but he has a -3 rend and 3 damage, so I like the damage where he's at. Since he starts at 10 attacks, he might be a little better than the War Stomper. Some say the War Stomper's better, some say the Gatebreaker's better. I think the damage is better, but the overall attacks, the War Stomper, I think, as long as you keep targeting hordes with him, is probably still going to be your best bet for that. He has all the same rules like Timber, Terror, Longshank, Death Grip, etc. What changes for him is Smash Down. Add 1 to the damage inflicted by each successful attack made by this model that targets a unit that is part of a garrison, or is wholly on or within a terrain feature. In addition, at the end of the combat phase, you can pick 1 terrain feature within 3 inches of this model and roll a dice. If the roll is equal to or greater than the smashdown value on the table, the terrain feature is reduced to rubble. All of its scenery rules are replaced with the deadly scenery rule, and its keywords are changed to scenery, rubble. So this can be really big in terms of all the terrain that's army specific. The Ogre Pot, the Sylvaneth Wild Trees, the Idoneth Deep Kinship, the Osiark Bone Reapers Monument, the Khorne has their altar, all these different things. You can actually destroy and get rid of all their benefits. So you can just make it so the only scenery rule it has is deadly, and it's counted as rubble. That can be really big on people that rely on the terrain to change the game. For the ones that don't, he's still going to be a powerful player in the damage he puts out, but other than that, might not have much more going for him. I think he's pretty cool. My favorite personally out of the Megas is the War Stomper, purely for how he looks. I love the dude, how he looked when he was previewed, and that was just my favorite, and it stayed my favorite. The Kraken Eater is really good because of the objectives we talked about. And then I like the Gatebreaker just because I run Death a lot, and he can fit into being an ally. He can fit into doing, you know, the different damage I need. So they all have their roles. The last thing to look at is the Man Crushers. Now these aren't Mega Gargants, they are just Man Crusher Gargants. This is probably what I felt was like the weakest out of all of it. They have Massive Club. It's a 3-inch range. The attacks start at 10. They decline going 10, 9, 8, 6, 4. They only have 12 wounds. They have a 5-up save. They have a 7 bravery, and they move 8 inches. The Massive Club deals 1 damage. I feel that those were the guys that should be dealing 2, because they're still giants. They are still supposed to be impactful towards, you know, the smaller races. Even things like orcs and ogres, they kind of look down on in their size. So I think everyone else for the megas should have been at 3 for their main attack, and then the Man Crushers at 2. I think that would have been where they would have been really good. The save is 5-up. I don't mind the save. This is your battle line unit, so the wounds are okay, the save's okay. I think I would have liked a 4-up save for them with the damage at 1. Had they made the damage 2 like I think it should have been, 5-up save, perfectly fine. As you can see, they don't wear a bunch of armor. They got some leather on their legs, so the 5-up save is really just their own toughness coming into play. They also have Headbutt, so Headbutt attack, 1-inch range, attacks 1, 4 and 3s, 3 rend with damage of 4, 3, 3, 2, 1. Their big thing is Stomping Charge. After a model from this unit makes a charge move, pick one enemy unit within 1 inch of it and roll a dice. If the roll is equal to or greater than the Stomping Charge value for the charging model shown on the table above, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If this unit has more than 1 model, do not allocate the mortal wounds until all of the models in this unit have made their charge move. So, the Stomping Charge is a 2+, 3+, 4+, 5+, 6+, depending on your wounds. And it goes from 0 to 10 up. Stuff them in me bag. After a model in this unit piles in, you can pick 1 enemy model within 3 inches of it, roll a dice. If it is double the wounds, it is slain. So once again, you're picking somebody, just taking them out, trying to break up coherency, trying to take out the buffs and bonuses for that unit, and go from there. Now, their big thing that I mentioned earlier, keep up. If this unit is within 12 inches of a friendly Mega Gargant at the start of the charge phase, it can attempt to charge in that phase, even if it ran in the same turn. So you have an 8-inch move. You probably always want to run because they don't even have a shooting attack base. You can give them one based off that general ability, but you're probably going to be moving 11 on average. So you run them 11, then they can still charge or attempt to charge. And they have Timber as well. So if a model from this unit is slain before moving it from the battlefield, the players roll off. The winner must pick a point on the battlefield 3 inches from that model. Each unit within 2 inches of that point suffers D3 mortal wounds unless it is a Gargant. That model is removed from the battlefield. So with that in mind, now we're going to hop back over to the different tribes. So this is the Taker tribe. So this is the part where I said 2 Krakens could get really powerful. Get rid of them. When using the Mightier Makes Rightier rule to determine objectives, each Man Crusher Gargant, so these dudes, count as 15 instead of the 10 rule, and each Mega Gargant counts as 30 models instead of 20. So now you've upped it to 30 and 15. And if you run these guys in a unit of 3, that means they count as 45 models for an objective. So that gets insane, and you're going to have a hard time taking an objective from a take or try. Especially when you add in them kicking the objective around, they can make it so that you are going to fight them on their terms. The other battle trait is more stuff for me collection. Each time an enemy model with an artifact of power is slain, you can roll for a triumph on the triumph table. You can use that triumph during the current battle, even if you already used it. If you do not use it during the current battle, it is lost. You cannot use it in your next battle. So, I don't know why they felt like you would have to save that for your next battle. Even in a tournament setting, I don't know if opponents would really try and say that they earned that the last one. But that's neither here nor there. Just by killing someone with an artifact power, you can gain a triumph, which is pretty cool. Command traits that you can pick from. Monstrously tough. They have a wound character. The general has a wound characteristic of 40 instead of 35, so they get 5 bonus wounds. Old and gnarly. You can reroll save rolls of 1 for attacks that target this general. Louder than words. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of the Shipwrecker War Club. Strong right foot. When you use this general's get off me land ability to kick an objective marker away, you can roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 to determine how far it is kicked. That is another powerful command trait, especially if you're trying to go with making it so that you're fighting on your terms. Because now I'm kicking it 3d6. That's 9 inches on average that I'm going to move an objective that I count 15 or 30 models for, depending on the type of garden. That is a powerful one. The other powerful one, very acquisitive. You can take 1 extra trophies taken by force artifact of power for this general's army. In addition, this general can have up to 2 artifacts of power instead of 1. So if you want to just one Kraken and a bunch of Man Crushers, your general can still have 2 artifacts. The other thing, extremely intimidating, subtract 1 from hit rolls from enemy models that are within 3 inches of this general. That's just a -1 to hit, which that part can add some survivability to them, because now even a good hitting model on 2-up is hitting on 3s, 4s, and that can save some wounds right there. There are artifacts of power, and this is for the Kraken Eaters only. Jaws of Megalodon. Once per phase, you can reroll 1 hit roll or 1 wound roll of an attack made by the bearer, or 1 save roll for an attack that targets the bearer. You cannot use this ability to reroll more than 1 dice in the bearer per phase. So that's pretty good. You can reroll a hit or wound roll, or a save roll can be critical. The Walloping Tentacle. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick 1 enemy hero within 3 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 4+, that hero suffers a mortal wound, and you can reroll hit rolls of 1 for the attacks that target the hero into the end of that phase. You have the Jar of Bernie Grog. Once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 2+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, and until the end of that phase, you can reroll wound rolls for the attacks made by friendly Gargans that target that unit. On a 1, the bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds, so there's a very good chance you're going to deal some mortal wounds with that one. And if you really wanted to make sure that model was dead, you pop that ability off. Everyone's going to be rerolling wound rolls. That can be critical, especially if you're targeting something big like Archeon, Nagash, a Maul Crusher. If you're going after Bone Reapers, you might need that. There's so many different things I can think where rerolling wound rolls is going to be a really clutch thing that you need. Net of the Beast Reaver. At the start of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy monster within 3 inches of the bearer and roll a dice. On a 4+ until the end of that phase, subtract 1 from the hit rolls made by that monster, and you can add 1 to hit rolls for attacks that target the monster. So this is another one where if you want to target monsters, you might want to consider taking this. And you can pick artifacts once you know your opponent's force. So if they're running a bunch of monsters like a Gristlegore list, you might want to consider that. This is one that's really unique to them, Glowy Lantern. The bearer can attempt to cast 1 spell in your hero phase and unbind 1 spell in the enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. The bearer knows Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield. So this gives you a wizard in an army that doesn't really have any. Something else that's been brought up is that means you could possibly take an endless spell. That could be changing as well, depending on the endless spell you pick. Then you have Kraken Sandals. The bearer's Almighty Stomp has an attack characteristic of 3 instead of 2, a rend of -3 instead of 2, and a damage characteristic of 3 instead of D3. That one's pretty good. 3 attacks that have a rend characteristic of 3 and just a flat 3 damage. That is a pretty big contender in them as well, especially if you choose to go with the trait that gives you 2 artifacts. There's some nice combinations that you could have here. I'm going to do the Breaker Tribes next. So this is the one that's all about breaking down enemy terrain and stuff. Breaking down the houses. Add 1 damage inflicted by each successful attack made by friendly Man-Crusher Gargant unit that targets a unit that is part of a garrison or is wholly on or within a terrain feature. So if someone's trying to get their cover saves, trying to bunker down in a certain piece of terrain and all, you're going to be dealing more damage. And for, like I said, models that only do 1 damage, bumping it up to 2, pretty nice. In addition, at the end of the combat phase, you can pick 1 terrain feature within 3 inches of a friendly Man-Crusher Gargant unit and roll a dice. Add the number of the models in that unit to the roll. On a 7+, that terrain feature is reduced to Rebel. All of its scenery rules are replaced with the Deadly Scenery rule, and its keywords are changed to Scenery Rebel. So basically, the Gatebreaker is taking the little guys and making them mini Gatebreakers. And that's another thing where you'd want to use that ability more in the bigger units. So you'd want a 3-man unit, that way you could get it on a 4-up. Fierce Loathings. When you pick the Breaker Tribe army, you can choose to roll for 1 ability or choose it from the Fierce Loathing table. The ability applies to Gatebreaker Mega Gargants and friendly Man-Crusher Gargant units. Bossy Pants and Clever Cogs. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that target a hero or wizard. Idiots with Flags. Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by units that with this ability that target a totem or a unit with any command models. That one is a bit confusing, only because I think their point is to target banners. I'm not positive if that would count for everything, though. Shining Elms. Add 1 to hit rolls for targets that... Add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by units with this ability that target a unit with a save characteristic of 1, 2, 3, or 4, and that is not a hero or monster. So, you're getting +1 on hitting. It's pretty good. It's made for hitting the hardier stuff. So, Stormcast, some of the cities of Sigmar, Iron Jaws, any of the just hardier armies, that would be a pretty good one to have. Crowds, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made that target a unit with 20 or more models. So if you're fighting a horde army, that might be the way you want to go. Wannabes, you're adding that 1 for hit rolls against war machines and monsters. And then you got Piggybackers, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made by this unit that target a unit with a mount that is not a monster. So they're made for attacking cavalry. Command traits. Unstoppable Besiegers. You have Monstrously Tough, once again, 40 wounds instead of 35. Old and Gnarly, once again, reroll save rolls of 1 that target the unit. Louder Than Words, add 2 attacks to the Fort Crusher Flail. So that's pretty good. Especially, like I said, with that -3 rad damage 3. That command trait's pretty up there for this particular tribe, in my opinion. Extremely Bitter. You can choose or roll for 2 abilities from the Fierce Loathing table for your army instead of 1. If you randomly generate the second, roll again if it is the same as the first. The second ability only applies to the general. Smasher. When you use this general smash down ability, you can reroll the dice that determines if the terrain feature is turned to rebel. And then Seize Red. While this general is within 9 inches of a terrain feature that can have a garrison, when you look on the value of that general's damage table, they are treated as if they have suffered 0 wounds. So, can be pretty powerful in terms of getting the most damage out of them. Artifact of Power, Legacy of Demolition. You have the roll of dice for each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer on a 6. That wound or mortal wound is negated. Like I said, mortal wounds are this army's big thing, so having a chance at stopping them, that automatically makes that one pretty good in my opinion. And then just the fact that it can also stop normal wounds as well. The Great Rekka. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with the bearer's Fort Crusher Flail is 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target in addition to any normal damage. In addition, when you use this bearer's Smashdown ability, you can add 1 to the dice roll that determines if terrain features reduced to rebel. So if you plan on destroying a lot of ruins, or you just want to take that chance at getting more mortal wounds in, that could be the one to go with. And then the Kingslaughter Cow. You can reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made by the bearer that target a hero. In addition, you can reroll wound rolls for attacks that made by the bearer that target a general. So, that one I'm not too big on, but it's okay. Then the final one, Stomper Tribes. I saved this one for last because, as you can see, it has a lot of rules to it. I'm going to kind of speed one part of this up for the sake of ease. It has big shouts. If your army is a Stomper tribe, your general must use the following big shout command abilities. They cannot use any other command abilities, so all the main rulebook ones are out. But they gave them back under their own thing. So, you can use this command. So one is get a move on, you slackers. You can use command ability to start the movement phase. If you do so, until the end of that phase, if you make a run roll for a friendly man crusher unit within 18 inches of your general, is treated as a 6. So this is an improved version of the run roll. You also have grab those rocks and chunk them. Instead of picking a unit, every man crusher target unit within 18 inches of your general gets to make that shooting attack. Or you. Yes, you. Charge. This is your whole being able to reroll charge rolls for man crusher target units within 18 inches of your general. Stop mucking about and hit them. If you do, this is your reroll hit rolls of 1 for attacks. Then you have your reroll save rolls for attack with watch your backs, you gormless lot. And where do you think you're going? That's your bravery check. So they improved it by making it so you're not picking just one unit. It creates a 18-inch bubble, and it's within, not wholly within, it is within. So you can tag 1 to give them all. The next big battle trait is add 1 damage inflicted by each successful attack made by a friendly man crusher unit that targets a model with 10 or more models. Add 2 to each one if it is a unit with 20 or more models. So that helps start increasing that damage that I said is really low. So they are your horde killing army. Their command traits: veterans of one-sided battle. They have some of the basic ones: the monstrously tough for 40 wounds, old and gnarly for rerolling saves, louder than words. Add 1 to the attack characteristic of the Titanic Boulder Club to a maximum of 10. So I don't like that one for them because it does have that cap. So it's kind of in my opinion. Inescapable grip. When you use this general's hurled body ability, you can reroll the dice that determines if the target is slain and thrown. Very shouty. If this general is on the battlefield at the start of the first battle round, you receive D3 extra command points. That is pretty big because that can be all of these command abilities that I just talked about on all your different man crushers. So that might be one you want to go for. And then the other one is eager for the fight. You can attempt to charge with this general if it is within 18 inches of an enemy instead of 12, and you roll 3d6 instead of 2d6 when making the charge roll. So if you just want them to burst through, that is going to be the big one to look at. The Artifact of Power, Trappings of the Titan, Ironwell Solstice. You can reroll save rolls for attacks that target the bearer. In addition, if the reroll save roll is a unmodified 6, the attack that was made with a melee weapon, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all of its attack rolls have been resolved. So that is probably my favorite, just purely for I can reroll my save rolls. So if I need to make sure my guy lives, that is the one I'll go with. They also have Club of the First Oak. In your hero phase, you can heal 1 wound allocated to the bearer. In addition, if the bearer is slain, roll a dice before the bearer's model is removed from play. On a 4+, the wound or mortal wound is negated, and the bearer is not slain. And any wounds that remain to be allocated to the bearer are negated. So that can be a nice little 50-50 for when you have that last wound. You just keep rolling to see if the next damage kills him or not. That one's okay. I don't really care about the healing 1 wound. When you have that many wounds, it's not going to matter. If they have focus to getting you down that much, healing 1's not going to change too much. But the 4-up, 50-50 chance of just saying no to damage on the final wound, that can be nice. Mantle of the Destroyer. Friendly Gargants have a bravery characteristic of 10 while they're within 12 inches of the bearer. In addition, you can reroll charge rolls for friendly Gargants that are within 12 inches of the bearer. So that one's pretty good if you plan to run a bunch of man crushers with them. If you're just running a bunch of man crushers and you want to just charge them all day, that is the one to go with. But those are the 3 tribes. They don't actually have any general things. So like how sometimes people don't pick, their hosts, their tribes, all of that, and go with general abilities. They don't actually have anything like that here. So you definitely want to do a tribe if you're running a Sons of Behemat army. Overall, the army is not as damage heavy as most thought it would be, and it's definitely not as damage heavy as I would have liked to see for the Mega Gargants. I'm almost more disappointed in the Man Crushers. Like that 1 damage on their attack, I feel like that should have been 2. That just needed to be 2 damage. And then the others should have been 3 to represent their size. So, but some people are also saying they're not as survivable as they wanted. I don't see the problem surviving wise. Like I said, 4-up save, 5-up saves. Yeah, they could have been a little better. Maybe 3 on the Megas and 4 on the Man Crushers in compensation of the damage. I think if the damage had been 1 higher on their main attacks for each of them, I I would not say that they need any better saves. Of the wounds, 35 wounds, and then you have the ability to pick your general going up to 40. That's going to be hard to chew through if the opponent doesn't have a lot of mortal wounds that they can deal with you. But I think the army, I don't know if it'll be the top army. I know it won't be the top army, but it's going to be a fun army, and I think you can make it more competitive than some people have said. If you depend on what your playstyle is, the Taker tribe is going to be very objective, manipulative, placing the objectives right, making it hard to take them. Whereas the War Stomper, that's going to be your just go in, smash the enemy off stuff, and just take the objectives through force army. And then the Gatebreaker tribes, that's going to be interesting because terrain, I don't know, terrain doesn't really have, a lot of the time, I don't see people use the scenery rules for terrain except for their army stuff. Obviously the army stuff they use, but I don't see people really start using that army terrain, and it'll be something to track because you can turn any terrain into deadly, so people are going to have to start learning to adapt to that more. Now, the one thing I have seen and started thinking about is a lot of people only focus on the abilities and the artifacts of the army you have. You are going to want to also look at the realm artifacts and the realm abilities and the realm spells if you make your Kraken a wizard. Those will be things that could potentially kick them up a notch and take them to another level. Because some of them give out more damage, some give out better saving ability. There's different things to play with. Some of the spells can be great. It's all a matter of how you build up your army, which gargants you take, how you focus on things, and you just gotta plan it out. And you know you're gonna be the one with the smallest amount of models, because typically you're gonna have 6 models on average. If you depend on the size of the game, you could potentially go up to, I think it's like 10, like 3 units of 3 man crushers and 1 of the megas. You could take 2 of the mega gargants and like 4 or 5 of the man crushers in a 2,000 point game. But it's all just going to be how you choose to build that list. How you build that list is going to make a difference. Overall for the army, I like them. Do I think this book is a 10 out of 10? No. It's not even a 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. I'd probably say you're looking at it like a 7 out of 10, depending on if you really like destruction or not and how you want to play it. It might even be a 6 out of 10 for you. I'm going to say, for me, it's a 7 out of 10. I think there's more tricks to it and more ways to do stuff than people potentially think if you're running a dedicated Sons of Behemat army. But outside of that, there's not going to be anything game-breaking. You know, it's not Bone Reapers with the Petrifix. It's not the Lumineth with their mortal wounds. It's not the Skaven. It's not going to be a real game-breaking army. You're going to have to play smart. You know, you're going to have to play tactically to win. Outside of that, there is one more thing that I'm supposed to go over. So, the mercenaries that I touched on earlier, you have the Krakens. They can play, and you can only take 1 mercenary in each of your games. So you have Bundo Whalebiter, which is a Kraken Eater mercenary. He plays in order armies or destruction armies. That's something else, by the way, that I've looked at. I think you can take this, even in your Sons of Behemat army, if you wanted. And what it does is you get all the rules for that model, but you also get a bonus. So, for example, the Kraken one that can play in order destruction, at the start of your combat phase, you can say that this model will be uncannily cunning. If you do so, this model fights at the end of that phase, but you can reroll hit rolls for attacks made by this model. So if you think you can take a beating and you're okay with some reduced ability, that could be a good one to go with. You have the Gatebreaker mercenary called Big Drog Fort Kicker. He is for destruction and death. At the end of the combat phase, you can pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of this model and roll for a number of dice equal to the number of models from that unit that are within 3 inches of this model. For each 6, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. That is grievous halitosis. So basically, he breathes really horrible breath on people and can deal mortal wounds. Then you have the War Stomper. He is chaos and destruction. One-eyed Grunnock. Shake the earth. You can re-roll hit rolls of jump up and down attacks made by this model. In addition, subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units that are within 6 inches of this model if this model made any jump up and down attacks earlier in the same phase. So you let him go first, and he creates a 6-inch bubble of -1 to hit. And that's not just on him, that's -1 to hit, period. So that can be pretty good. Especially, like I said, in destruction armies, I'm pretty sure you could take those mercenaries even in the Sons if you wanted. The drawback is you don't get a command point in the first round, so you're kind of giving up a command point to get a little extra boost. But that could also really help things like the ogres. It could help the Gloomspite Gits. It could help. I don't know if the Iron Jaws really need it. They have the Maul Crusher. They have a lot of damage potential already, and they don't really need a big guy. So I'd probably avoid them with it. But the mercenary rules are pretty cool. Check out my other video that kind of goes over the unboxing and all. Each of the Mega Gargants is $195. But like I said, they're basically 500 points. So the math equals out that that's about what you'd pay for 500 points, if not almost $50 to $100 more. So you get at least something that can be the start of one army for you and can flesh out other armies you potentially have. But I like them. I'm happy and excited to play them. Like, as you can see, it is the day of release. I've already got 2 built. The last one's going to be built tonight. And the Man Crushers are going to be built by the end of the weekend. So the plan is by Monday, I'm pretty much going to start painting them. And hopefully by next weekend, I can be getting games in with them and giving kind of some reviews about how they play, and hopefully even have battle report coming up with them. But hopefully you like this review. Hopefully it gives you some in-depth look into the army and gives you an idea of how to play them, gives you an idea of if you want to pick them up. They are a fun army for sure. Their lore is fun to read, and they are going to be competitive to play. They're going to be challenging to play, but they are not going to be game-breaking. They're not going to be a point-and-click, easy-win army. So if that is what you want for competitive, avoid these guys. But if you want something to challenge yourself and something that's going to be a low model count, something easy to travel with, take a look at these guys. Take a look at picking them up. And overall, like I said, for me, Sons of Behemat, Age of Sigmar, 7 out of 10. So Thank you for your time. Feel free to check out our other videos. Find us on Facebook at Gaming Underground Miniatures. We are also on Twitter. We are on Instagram. Check us out at any of those spots to follow along with what we do. And hopefully you're all being safe. You're all healthy and well. We are looking excited at getting back at doing more videos coming up. I'm excited at doing more coming up as people start coming out more and as things start getting back to a semblance of normal and safety for everyone. So, once again, thank you for your time. You have a wonderful weekend and happy wargaming.